When you were little, you probably knew exactly who you were. Maybe you were the kid who loved Pokemon, or the one who only ate chicken nuggets, or the one who drew on every piece of paper you could find. Childhood identities are simple like that, built from a few small things that make us feel special. And then one day, someone called you smart. Maybe it was your teacher, maybe your parents, maybe everyone around you. They said it enough times that you started to believe it, to build your sense of self around it. You weren't just you anymore, you were the smart one. It felt good. Every time you understood something faster than others, every time you got an A without really trying, you got praise. You learned that being smart meant being noticed, being valued. It became your superpower. You didn't need to study as hard. Life felt easy. And for a while, that worked. But slowly, that praise turned into pressure. You began to notice that people didn't just like you, they liked that you were smart. And when something was hard, when you didn't understand something right away, it didn't just feel like a small setback. It felt like something was wrong with you. Because if you were really smart, shouldn't it be easy? So you started to avoid things that made you doubt yourself. You didn't raise your hand unless you were sure. You didn't try things you might fail at. You stayed inside the lines of what you already knew. And every time you played it safe, it felt a little more comfortable and a little more lonely. As you grew older, that mindset quietly followed you. You still had the brain, the ability, the potential, but now the spark was gone. You couldn't start things, couldn't finish them, couldn't connect with people the way you wanted to. You watched others living their lives while you stayed in your head, wondering why everything felt so far away. The truth is, none of this happened because you failed. It happened because you learned to survive through being perfect, through being effortless. But what helped you as a child is now holding you back as an adult. And the way out isn't about trying harder, it's about letting go. Letting go of the idea that you have to be effortlessly brilliant to be worthy. Let yourself be a learner again, someone who's allowed to try, fail, and grow. You were never meant to be a trophy of potential. You were meant to be a real person, curious, imperfect, and alive. When you grow up being called smart, it changes how you see yourself. At first, it feels amazing. Every time you answer a question right or impress adults, they praise you. You start to believe your worth comes from being clever and getting things right the first time. Being smart becomes your identity. But over time, things shift. Without noticing, you start to avoid anything that might make you look less smart. You don't raise your hand unless you're sure of the answer. You don't play games unless you know you'll win. You stop trying new things, not because you don't want to, but because you're scared to fail. So you stick to what's safe, what you already know. And slowly, your world gets smaller. While others are out there trying, failing, learning, and growing, you're busy protecting your image. At first, it feels safe. But soon, it becomes a cage. The fear of looking stupid takes over. You realize that the identity that once made you proud now feels fragile. You can't risk being wrong. You can't risk failing. And without risk, you can't really grow. That's when loneliness sets in. Growth and connection come from shared experiences, learning together, laughing over mistakes, figuring things out side by side. When you pull yourself away from those moments, you also pull away from people. You don't join clubs because you might not be good at them. You skip new activities because they're unfamiliar. You tell yourself you prefer working alone, but deep down, you start to feel disconnected. You still want closeness, but you don't know how to reach it. So you fall back on what you're best at, thinking. You start analyzing people instead of simply being with them. You understand emotions but don't really feel them. You can talk and charm, but it all happens in your head. Every social moment feels like a test you could fail, so you pull away more and more. You convince yourself you just like being alone. But the loneliness grows. You try to reason your way out of it, writing down explanations and analyzing every feeling, every conversation. You look for logic in emotions that don't make sense. But thinking can't heal loneliness. Intelligence can explain pain, but it can't comfort it. And when it hurts too much, your ego steps in to protect you. You start telling yourself you're just different, too deep, too smart, too unique to connect. But really, you're just scared to be seen as human. You start to tell yourself that other people wouldn't understand you anyway. It sounds like confidence, but really, it's a way to protect yourself. It's easier to pretend you're above others than to admit you feel lonely. But the wall that keeps you safe also keeps you alone. You end up living behind it, watching life from the outside, wanting to reach out but not knowing how. The truth is, the only way out is to let go of that old identity. You have to stop trying to be the smart one and start being a real person again. Not because being smart is bad, but because if your worth depends on always being smart, you'll spend your whole life avoiding mistakes. You'll protect your pride instead of actually living. Real change starts when you stop asking, "Will this make me look smart?" and start asking, "Will this help me grow?" You try new things even if you're bad at them. You speak up even if you might be wrong. You let yourself learn again, slowly, awkwardly, imperfectly. It feels uncomfortable at first, like you're losing something. But what you're really gaining is freedom. Your worth was never about being perfect or exceptional. It was always about being human, being curious, trying your best, showing up even when it's hard. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room to belong there. You just need to be real, to be present, to be brave enough to connect without hiding behind perfection. And when you finally do, when you stop pretending to have it all figured out and let people see who you really are, something amazing happens. The world starts to feel open again. You begin to feel connection, not because you proved yourself, but because you allowed yourself to be part of life instead of standing apart from it. And that's when you realize this is what you've been looking for all along. Not praise. Not perfection. Just belonging. Just being seen. Just being human.